imagine, if you will, darkness, a creeping cold that you never quite see on the edge of your sight anywhere you go, every time you live, every time you breathe. It's just constantly there, no rhyme or reason to it, it just is. Oftentimes, I feel this way myself as an autistic individual living in today's society. It has never quite been easy, but it has been an interesting road nonetheless. Then, when you least expect it, a flicker begins to happen in the corners of your mind, and light slowly grows within you and goes further and further and builds as you grow older in today. And as you mature, you discover things that work or don't work, and you continue to figure it out. That is how this journey becomes the epic tale that we all experience today. Then, when you least expect it, static happens. And the static, much like the darkness, has no rhyme or reason to it. It just happens when you least expect it, and it just is. As an autistic individual, I experience this static regularly. And many times, you could say, oh, every now and then it will dissipate or it will disappear. I am on the edge of 30 years old, and I assure you, it has never gone away. But there are ways to make life better. But the interesting thing about the static is that not only did it start or get worse in my teenage years, it has been a lifetime dilemma. And it will be there until the day I die. Life has never been easy for me, but hopefully through this talk, I can share how I've built my life and made myself better. Currently, I am a senior right here at MSU Denver. I never imagined myself, not in a million years, to be in college. I was told many times, you will not amount to anything. You will end up in jail. You will end up in situations that are much more PG-13 than I'd like for this stage. So, we will just stick with what we know. Asperger's syndrome, although being the butt end of jokes, it is a disorder that has become increasingly common. Even though people have theories as to how it started, there's no definite way to determine how it begins and how it ends. And as mentioned previously, it never really ends. But in the 1940s, a pediatrician by the name of Hans Asperger, despite his colleagues reprimanding him and saying that this does not exist, you are incorrect, he discovered that many of his clients were representing signs of autism. Although not completely 100% autistic, these children showed the signs nonetheless. In 1990s, it was officially designated as a psychiatric illness in the database that many diagnosing pediatricians have referred to for decades. One moment. Okay, so the signs of being an autistic individual are pretty straightforward. You have massive interests in many different things, but there is always that one thing you're good at. That one thing beyond a shadow of a doubt you're better at everyone else. And then there are social difficulties. Now, these two things by themselves are usually not that big of an issue, but combined, they create a very tumultuous upbringing for any child or any young adult in the system. Now, As I said, I am currently very happy with my position here at MSU and my standing, but it has never always been that way. Now, if I were to take you far back, my parents divorced when I was very young. And for anybody, that is a difficult thing to do. But with an autistic individual that does not understand their disability at that time, you wonder, is it me? Am I the cause of these unhappiness? And it's like, you don't quite understand. And why don't I understand? It's just such a complicated thing, but we learn to deal with it. Then if you fast forward a few years into elementary school, I was paranoid of a fellow student stealing things from my locker. So what I did, instead of resolving the situation kindly and representing myself in a kind manner, I assaulted him. I was very nearly arrested that very day. And then, if you were to fast forward to middle school, I had these two friends that, beyond shadow of doubt, they were my best friends. And we would practice in the band room and have this little rock band. And then a talent show came up. And then for whatever reason, they didn't let me know. They decided to perform without me. And, with a disability such as Asperger's, you wonder, is it me? Is it the other people? How exactly do I continue to live when in my own skin I do not feel comfortable? Then in high school, we have many close calls, but I tell you, middle school was definitely the worst. There was another story I wanted to mention. I had a teacher, and as a secondary education student myself, I find this action that this teacher did to be violation of my privacy and my rights as a human being. Now, the teacher, at this point in my life, many autistic individuals have trouble with bathing. There's a massive hydrophobia for anyone on the spectrum. And at this time in my life, I did not bathe regularly. And that was mostly my issue, not much of a problem with others. But she went to another class and shared that I had this problem. And it was in a totally different class, and I was mortified. All these actions piled onto each other, and then I moved across country to try and find peace and to make myself better. But this did not end up the way I planned. I eventually ended up in a homeless shelter that sort of acted as a group home, and I struggled with alcoholism, addiction, and just the fact that I was not suited for the skin I was in, and I was not suited for the world that I lived in. Then one day, my anger got the best of me. This confusion, this frustration, all these things I felt or feel, they came to a head. And I destroyed many different things on this property that these people were willing to let me into their home. In this instance, I frightened a domestic violence victim so much that she moved out and I was evicted. At this point, I was at rock bottom. And I was so confused, so frustrated, but it's nothing new, right? So, where do we go from here? On the eve of when I was supposed to start a new life or just figure things out from square one, yet again, I looked into the sky. I saw the moon, the stars. In Florida, we don't get snow, but there was a perspiration that rose to my face. And I decided then that I needed change. I needed help. And, I was ready to change. Now, bear in mind, there were still many many, many bumps in the road. But I got into the workforce. I went to college again. I went to college shortly after high school, but I didn't stick with it. I said it was nothing for me, and all those people said I was not meant to be there. And as I went to school and had these higher educations and these higher levels of thinking, I realized these frustrations that I found were not because other people were mean. It was because I was mean to myself. These things that I ran from, these things that got me in trouble, got me addicted, got me into all these issues, they began and ended with me. And the point of my talk is that inclusion doesn't mean other people. It never has. It begins and ends with yourself. Everyone, no matter your sexual orientation, your status in the economy, your status with employment, everyone deserves to feel included. And I myself did not feel that way, but I met many different people that began to push me in the right direction. I have my family here today, some very beloved friends and family, and they pushed me in such a way that 6 years later, I'm about to graduate. Thank you. But my point being is that everyone has that little light inside them. And eventually, it burns and it grows. And my point, if you were to leave here today and not remember anything that I said, I would say to you, just worry about yourself, build yourself, know that you are a good human being. You are not perfect because perfect doesn't exist. Perfect is a construct that we created as a society. And the farthest from perfect you can be is all good to me. But in the end, you just gotta make your light come alive.